Welcome into the Mental Moments podcast with your guide, Healing Hottie. Mental Moments is where we walk through life experiences, yours and mine, finding the ingredients to make life sweeter. A conversation to consider our minds, bodies, and souls, moving with gratitude one step at a time. Thinking about dating again? Where should you start? Let's walk through this together.
Welcome in. I'm your host and guide, Healing Hottie. Mental Moments is a conversation, honey, and today we are talking all about dating and how to re-enter the dating world after you've taken some time away. I have lived many lives in my 30 plus years, and I have been fortunate enough in my 20s. I spent a lot of time, and I say fortunate because I'm grateful for the experience, but I spent a lot of time in serious relationships, a couple back to back, a few back to back actually. And there was one that took up the majority of my 20s, and I ended up marrying this person. Not intentions on that lasting forever. And of course it did not, but we're here today. And I'm grateful for that time. And coming out of that, I wanted different. I really wanted to do love, romantic love in a different way. I wanted a healthy relationship that was built to last. So when I started putting myself out there again, there's some things that work for me, and I'm going to share them here with you today. It's important when you are venturing out and considering dating to set your intention. This is the number one mistake that I made going back into the dating world after I got divorced. And so it's important to understand, are you looking for long-term partner, companion, or marriage? What is it that you're looking for? Because with me, as I entered into the dating world again, I had no intention. I just wanted to see what was out there. And you notice a theme of this. If you listen to past episodes, I was just I'm just going to go see what's outside. And what that does is that leads you open to any and everything. And I very quickly, after spending some time, going on a few dates, talking to a few people, I didn't want everything that was out there. Okay. But I knew that. But because I didn't have this intention, right, it left me questioning, okay, am I being too rigid? Am I asking for too much? That kind of thing. Wasting a lot of time on those questions. But if you enter into this space and you understand that this is what I'm looking for, even if you say, okay, I'm just going to see what's out there and be open, you really have to remain in that space and reflect on if that's working for you or not. And it's interesting, though, that I had that disposition of I'm just going to see what's out there, even though immediately after even in the process of divorce, I was oh no, I want to be married again. I want to be a wife. I just knew that this wasn't the right person. And I don't know if I'll ever get into the details of what happened there here on the podcast, because I've moved on. I've since moved on. It is a part of my story. And I don't want to focus too much on the person per se, but I want to say that I knew oh no, this is a space in life that I want to be. I want to be a wife. I want to have a husband. I want us to be good to each other, and I would love to see what that looks like in the right time, space, and person. Now in this space where even though I know what I ultimately want, I'm just leaving myself open, and in that process, it left me disturbed, exhausted. And after taking a step back, I realized that I had to take accountability. You knew what you wanted coming out here, but then you did the total opposite. And that's a big problem in dating. We'll know what we actually want, but we'll position ourselves to get something totally different from that, and then get frustrated when we get the results that, don't leave us, feeling great. And that happens all of the time. And I'm just like many of us. I've done it too. And so it is important that as you are considering dating again, what your real intentions are, long-term and short-term, but long-term. Another big thing in this space of accountability, we have to understand and remain accountable for what we bring to the table. We all, and I'm not talking about money, we all bring something to this table that creates an abundance or food poisoning, okay? And if we are not mindful of what we're carrying with us, if we're not aware of what people are carrying in with them, it can create a mess pretty quickly. We have to understand that dating is not a one-sided thing. How do we do that? We have really ventured into this space where relationships and dating have, even if we think back to like friendships, it's become like very one-sided. What are you gonna do for me, kind of thing. Like, I'm good on my own, but what are you gonna add to me? And it's a very defensive disposition. It's a very inconsiderate disposition. It's not a mutual thing. And it's not, I don't like it. I really don't like it. And so, because I desire like dating someone, being in a relationship with someone, that it's really a space where we're both accountable for our things. We're mindful of how they mix together and how these complement and how we put that on the other side of the table, kind of thing. It really has transformed the way that I looked at dating as a whole, relationships as a whole. And so we have to think about it in the most basic sense, right? So if they do something that bothers you, but you never communicate that, how do they know? How do they have the opportunity to show up and show you, oh, I have in my toolkit, I can actually pursue you in a space of meeting that need. I have the skill, the characteristic of being highly considerate, but I don't get the opportunity to really show you that. And they do, right? You are responsible for what you bring to the table. But if we're not giving people the opportunity to, show who they are, to really explore who they are, that's not fair either. So let's begin to be mindful of our attitude, of our energy, of our listening skills, of our interests. All those things make up for a pleasant dating experience. Like even in the spaces where I have dated people where I'm like, oh, they're not for me, but they're not a bad person. And I've had them say the same thing of like, no, not for me, but you're a great person, is because we were willing to be mindful of like what we want, what we don't want, and what we are, what lives within us and could make this a good thing. It also looks like, are you making space for that person to be themselves? Are you easy or difficult to set up quality time with? Like all of those like little nuances and details of how you're willing to work together makes sense. And so if you find yourself not really interested and want to make more time with them, if you find yourself not really want to hear what they have to say, that's not the person for you. And it's absolutely okay to be fair and like, yeah, it's just not meshing well, or I'm not showing up well for you, and so I'm going to take a step back. Now, I know we have grown into an impatient society. We've grown into an instantaneous, love at first sight is engaged in 3 months kind of society. But in good and healthy dating, it's important to be patient and have your boundaries. No one has everything that you need, not even yourself. If we did, we wouldn't need each other. And we would be able to just move about life and do our own thing by ourselves. But that is not life, and it's a beautiful space to be in. And when you find someone that you feel good about, it's a loving thing to give yourself more time and energy to really grow and develop a real bond. So it's strong. So that means like, you're going to have to take your time in figuring out what you're looking for, figuring out what that looks like in a person, accepting and being pleasantly surprised by, what else they have to offer. And that takes time. And that takes a whole lot of patience. That takes being willing to communicate. I understand this is who you are, but this doesn't feel good to me, or this, I have a hard time with this. It looks like communicating your needs, but trying to dump all of that like quickly, trying to figure that out in one person, like just like that, trying to expect that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find somebody tomorrow and it's just going to work and it should work and they should just get it, is going to frustrate you. And I think that's a problem that, I've run into, that many people I've run into, where they are not willing to give it space and time to breathe. But also saying of like, this just doesn't work for me. And if you're willing to consider that, like, I want to see where this goes kind of thing, we are absolutely not there. But I think that there is a space. I think this is the time, not only in dating, but in life in general, to give things more time to develop as they should. Because, for example, and this is why communication is so critical in every relationship. Maybe you get someone who gets anxious when you don't text them back right away. There has to be a communication of like, I get a little bit anxious when I don't hear back from you. And then there also has to be a willingness to listen and hear why and what constraints, whether it's, I don't have the energy during the day to like respond as I'm working quite quickly, but I can check in, a compromise. It's, I'm usually doing something during this time, or, whatever the case might be. But allow there to be like a space and a dialogue about what's happening so you can really learn what their patterns are, learn how they can be considerate, learn how, there's things that I can relax about. Just because someone is not texting me back right away does not mean that something bad is happening. And being accountable for like that energy as well. But there's so many things. And I think if we try to move too quickly in building that relationship, it can be hard to work through that. It would be great to meet someone and it work out immediately, but we are not a trusting society. We are not. We are not. I'm not as trusting as I would love to be, or as I could be, right? And so in that, and not being and understanding that, I know that there's things that I'm going to need, and the right person for me will be as considerate of that while I remain willing to be accountable, right? Like, this makes me anxious and I can't put all the onus on you, but there are things that I can do. And then there's also things that I will communicate that just don't work for me. And if that's not something they're willing to bend on, then that's not the person for me. But I believe the right person for all of us will do that. Understand that despite all the horror stories that you might see on social media, that dating can be fun, okay? Dating can be the top. But not every attempt will be successful, and that's okay. The point is not to find the love of your life every single first date, because relax, control yourself, okay? Calm down. It's okay for it not to click. That's a good thing, right? Because that leaves space and time, opportunity for the right person to come along, and that allows space and opportunity for you to mature to be that right person for them. It's truly a process, and it's a process that's grown harder these days, but set your intentions, seek out those that align with those intentions, and whose actions and energy says the same. Like, not just what they say, but what are they doing to show you that y'all are on the same page? And then put in the time to learn and feel out that one that just makes sense in most of the ways. And the right one will reveal itself themselves. That's all I have today. This was a beautiful conversation. And remember, this is a conversation. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at Mental Moments and Healing Hottie, so that we can keep this conversation going. I pray what took me 12 steps takes you 3. Keep building a life you will be proud of, no matter how long it takes. Until next time.